Alright, so we're back in the studio. So we were discussing the exposure triangle, where I try to explain to you the concept of this exposure triangle. It's a term we give to these components of exposure that deals with the light that comes in and out of your camera. So we sum it up to what we call the exposure triangle. So it has three different components: the ISO, the shutter speed, and the aperture. So let's start with the ISO. These three things work together. They work together to control the light that comes in and out of your camera. Now, the ISO is that your camera sensitivity to light. So the camera that you have in, so how sensitive is it to the light that is available to it. So we have different values of the ISO. We have values ranging from 100 to about 12,800 or more, depending on the certification of your camera. So this ISO play a very important role in your photo shoot. Like the lower the value of your ISO, the less the light that goes into your camera, and the higher the value of your ISO, the higher the light that goes into your camera. So especially when you are in an environment where there is enough light and an amount of light, so you don't need to increase the value of your ISO. You have to keep it to a low so that it does not overexpose things, because the more the value of your ISO, the more the value of your ISO, the more exposure your camera is to light. So you begin to do overexposed pictures, and you don't want that. So and also you don't want underexposed picture. So you have to look at it, do some testing to know the value that is better for you given the environment that you are. So, like I said, the less the value of your ISO, the less the light that goes into your camera, and the higher the value, the higher the light that goes into your camera. So also, your ISO determines the texture of your picture. Because some pictures, when you look at them, they appear grainier than the rest. So for you to get a smoother picture, you have to keep your ISO on the low, like lower values, so that the pictures come out smoother. And then if you escalate your ISO, it appears grainier on the picture. It's always advisable for you to keep your ISO on the low to have a smoother, more quality picture. So when you're playing with your ISO, you have to compensate with the other components of the exposure triangle in order to allow you to keep your ISO on the low. Like if you're working in the studios, you can use your studio box, studio light, like this one that I have here is a studio light. You can use it to manipulate the value of your ISO to ensure that you keep it on the low for you to take better pictures. So let's move on to the aperture. So this aperture is also that aspect of the exposure triangle that allows light that come into your camera and goes out of your camera. So it's also useful, very useful, because with these three components, you can just manipulate, the light that comes and goes out of your camera. You can just control your exposure to ensure that light, your subject is not overexposed or underexposed. So this aperture, when you look at your lens, you will see an opening on your lens. So this opening is your aperture. Now, when you zoom the lens, it closes, and when you zoom it out, it opens. So now, the wider the opening on the lens, the more light that goes into your camera, and the shallower the opening on the lens, the less light that goes into your camera. So this aperture has values as well, just like the ISO. So the lower the value of your aperture, the more the light that goes into your camera, and the higher the value of your aperture, the less the light that goes into your camera. So this is tricky because you might think the higher the value, the higher the light, the lower the value. So it's just tricky in terms of aperture. So don't confuse it with the ISO. So this aperture also controls the depth of field of your image. So this depth of field is, determines what is in focus when you're, especially when you're snapping. Like for instance, if you're snapping a group of people and then you want to focus on a particular subject or something, so this depth of field controls the thing that's in focus. Now, why the other things are blurred out. So some pictures you begin to see that the subject in focus appears clearer than the ones out of focus. So that is the depth of field. So the aperture controls that. So the lower the value of your aperture, the more depth of field you get, and the higher the value of your aperture, the less depth of field that you get. So knowing this thing allows you to manipulate your exposure with ISO, shutter speed, and aperture. In order to draw the best light to give a better exposure to your subject. So and the other aspect of this exposure triangle we're going to talk about is the shutter speed. So this shutter speed is that aspect of the exposure triangle that controls also the light that goes in and out of the camera. So it is the amount of time the shutter opens and closes. Which when you snap, the shutter opens and closes. So the amount of time this phenomenon happens, that's your shutter speed. Now, so when you decrease the value of your shutter speed, it allows more light to come to go into your camera. Therefore, when you listen to the shutter of the camera, when you listen to it, it has more delay. Okay, so if you increase the value of your shutter speed, the delay is faster. It fastens the delay. So therefore, the faster your shutter speed, the less light that go into your camera. The slower your shutter speed, the more light that go into your camera. So this trick, you really need to know them in order for you to manipulate the exposure triangle in order to give out the best exposure out there. So now this shutter speed also can determine blurriness of picture. When your shutter speed, the value is very low, so you begin to see that your camera, because you can't hold the camera still with your hand. So when you're holding the camera in your hand, there is a tendency that your hand shakes. Okay, so when the speed is low, you begin to see motion blur in the picture. But when it is faster, so it reduces the motion blur. When you decrease the value of your shutter speed, you need to support it with a tripod. Especially when it is extremely low, you need to support it with a tripod so that to limit the shakiness of your hand or the camera, because you need to balance this thing out. Because if you don't steady the camera, there's every tendency that the picture is going to be blown, and you don't want that. So to eliminate that, you just have to. So now, by increasing the value of your shutter speed, you are now eliminating the blurriness, the shakiness of your hand. So now, knowing this concept, now you now know like this aspect of this exposure triangle we have mentioned and described. You now know how to manipulate this to get a good exposure for your subject. So like in the studio, there are some equipment you can use, like this is studio box light. So there are some equipment out there for you, and this is a DSLR camera, and it's a professional one. It's a 5D Mark II camera. So I don't know what you're using out there, but just make sure that you get something that that professional like. And also, you're also advised to shoot on manual because it allows you to be in control. So because when you're doing shooting on manual, you'll be able to set the values of your exposure triangle, their values, you're able to set them by yourself and determine what value best suits this shoot. So look at everything and then study everything, and don't be afraid, because that's why I'm here. So now, in order for this journey to be smooth for you, I implore you to hit that notification button and subscribe to this channel so that anytime I put a video out there, you'll be the first to know. So stick around, and there will be more to come. So if you want us to go throw more light, yeah, if you want us to throw more light on these exposure triangles, like individually, to explain them further, please hit that comment section and tell me what you want. And then like this video, because this encourages me to do more videos. So I expect to hear from you. Bye. And I remember your humble trainer, Stan. So see you next time. Ciao.